This is going to be a reaction video to Ravens roster cut day. Hopefully not an overreaction video. I'll try to temper some of the thoughts that I have. I personally believe that this roster is. I don't think they're done with their roster cuts. Obviously, I mean you've got to put David Ojabo on IR, and you've got to put Charlie Kolar there. So they're not keeping 5 tight ends. All right, that's an overreaction. However, I do think that the tight end / fullback position is one of the 2 limiting factors on this roster as it looks right now, and we'll look at the roster here in a moment. I don't think they're done. Clearly, they cannot sustain 11 offensive linemen. I don't believe at the current rate that they are anyway. There's definitely some positional overlap, and you want versatility on your roster, but I think we've got too much positional overlap in certain cases. And just to let you know, like this audio is not pre-typed up. I'm just doing this off the cuff. I did not have a chance to look in live at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when the Ravens roster cuts were made or announced or released. I was quite busy today. So what we'll do first is we'll look at the offensive piece, and I think that you have a limiting factor on this offense. You have a limiting factor on the roster configuration. Here obviously because Charlie Kolar, is one of the guys there. So they're saying we're keeping 5 tight ends, but we know he's going to IR. At some point, the situation with Ricard and Oliver needs to be rectified. Ricard and Boyle, there's just too much overlap there, in my opinion. We know that the Ravens, it seems like, are going to pick up Kenyon Drake. I'm not sure how much of an upgrade he is, to be honest with you. Got bad news for you. Not that he's not, a good player, but I just don't see him as that much of an upgrade over Davis and or Hill, based on the film that I saw from last year in 2021. And I saw a lot of Raiders film that last year, particularly in Week 1 and 2. The Ravens played the Raiders in Week 1, and then the Raiders played the Steelers in Week 2. So, in any case, I think this is a limiting factor for where this roster is in terms of its configuration, because we basically have 2 players, Boyle and Ricard, taking up, and there's so much positional overlap there. Am I saying you can get rid of Boyle and Ricard can play fullback and a little bit of tight end? I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I think Boyle, a completely healthy Nick Boyle, like we saw in 2019, is a totally different thing than what we saw last year, and what, to a lesser extent, what we've seen in the preseason. I'm not sure that we've seen a dominant blocking force out of Nick Boyle in the preseason, to be honest with you. And I don't think that we have necessarily out of Patrick Ricard either. I did not think on some of the kick-out blocks from him. He looked fantastic. Boyle was on a lot of our split zone concepts that we're trying to run now, and the offensive line was inconsistent. So it's unfair to judge Boyle on those blocking concepts, to be honest with you. But I think in terms of what they offer, blocking at the point of attack, somewhat limited receiving capability, I think Boyle was a very underrated receiving tight end pre-injury. If you look at some of the catches he had 2 against the Colts in 2020 on the road that were quite good, among others. It was pre-injury Nick Boyle. Those 2 guys, to me, really are offering the same things to our offense. And then, also the one that surprised a lot of people was Josh Oliver. I think Oliver and Likely are very similar. It kind of tells us that Likely is going to be used as a hybrid wide receiver, the fact that they're keeping Oliver around possibly. I know they're not done. I know they have until 4 p.m. Wednesday, I guess it is, to conduct IR designations, and then to bring people back. I'm going to talk about the defense in a moment. I'm really kind of disappointed about Isaiah Mack not being retained. I think it's quite obvious that certain guys are going to be brought back on the practice squad. Steven Means, Tony Jefferson, definitely a good, strong possibility. I would also say Dalen Hayes. I know that people are disappointed with him, and he's had injury difficulties. But to me, it just makes sense to bring back a young guy who has ability. Let's talk about the other limiting factor, and I think both of them are on offense, to be honest with you. I don't think that the limiting factors for this roster as it is tonight are either one of them on the defensive side. I know that outside linebacker is a concern, but I'm going to explain to you how I think the Ravens are attempting to address it, because we only get 2 moves, I believe, with the 2 IR guys, right? Kohler and Ojabo. And then I think we get 2 additional practice squad. I think we get 16 this year overall. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. So we've kept 11 offensive linemen. Cologne was the one that was kind of surprising. There is, clearly you need a starting right guard, starting left guard, and a backup, no doubt. At some point, to me, I think we have to designate what is Patrick Mekari. I understand that he can fill in anywhere, versatility is a good thing. It is. But at some point, when we have someone of that ability, to me, there has to be a moment where we say, okay, this is who he is, and this is what we're going to do with him. For a moment, let's pretend they said, we're going to let him practice at left guard. Is there anyone listening who doesn't think that Mekari beats out Powers and Tyree Phillips at left guard? I'm not talking about Ben Cleveland. He's been injured, had a late start to training camp, obviously. Let's just isolate Powers, Phillips, and Mekari. Is there anyone listening who doesn't think that Mekari beats out Powers and Phillips for that left guard spot? I just think he does. I just think he does based on the film that I've seen, the way he competed, and a secondary point to Mekari. I don't think that it's in our best interest to move him to left tackle permanently as a temporary solution. Is it something that is viable? Well, yeah, we do have Juwan James there, which is in terms of having Stanley healthy, having Morgan Moses healthy, Falele, Juwan James is obviously a backup option there. But let's not forget, when Mekari was healthy in 2021 and playing right tackle, he did a great job. If you're saying that he was inconsistent last year, and there are people who say that, Mekari was injured later in the year. He missed a game. I believe it was the Chicago game, but I might have that one wrong. There was a game later on in the season, around about week, somewhere between 12 and 13, maybe 11 or 14, that he missed. And then when he came back, he did not look like the same guy. So, some of the grades that are out on Mekari or whatever, it definitely surged when he was healthy. Look at the job he did against Chris Jones of Kansas City, playing on the right side in week 2 at home. He played great. Is he better than Juwan James? I'm not sure. Maybe not. I just think at some point we've got to declare who he is. And if you wanted to slot Mekari over here at left guard, and then you wanted to keep Tristan Cologne, okay, you keep him, just move him over to center, and then you get rid of one of those 2 guys. I like both of those 2 guys. Tyree Phillips apparently is only like 24, 25, so a lot younger than I thought. I still think that we've got 2 limiting factors, and for this roster as it stands right now, 27 offensive players, 23 defensive players as of Tuesday night, right after roster cuts. It's about 10 p.m. as I'm recording this. I think it's 27 and 23 is the breakdown, and we're going to drop 1 from each. Apparently, we're going to add Kenyon Drake, and so I think these 2 positions, the tight end / fullback, and the offensive line, we might have a 2-person surplus. Really. Imagine the roster without, let's just say, Boyle for a moment. And I like Nick Boyle. He's been a great Raven. Certainly not trying to say that we should get rid of him, but it's a tough cut. It's a testament to the Ravens roster, for real. The drafts that we've had, that we've cut good players. We cut Isaiah Mack. We cut Mekhi Polk. We cut Tyler Beatty. And on the running back thing, look, if you're sitting here judging our running backs, Beatty, Davis, Hill, and even McCrary, who we also cut, based on the preseason, did you watch the offensive line live stream that I did last Saturday morning? How inconsistent our O-line was? And you're going to judge Tyler Beatty off of that? I'm not talking about the Ravens front office. They have their own reasons. Personally, I think Davis and Hill are our best options, if J.K. Dobbins can't go in week 1. Who would I prefer, Kenyon Drake or Tyler Beatty? I don't know. Certainly Kenyon Drake has the better resume, better stats and accomplishments in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. But to judge him completely and say he's a disappointment based on the preseason stuff when he's running behind, really patchwork second string offensive line guys. I'm talking about Beatty when he would get in the game. Davis and Hill as well. There was plenty of times where there's just nothing there. There's just nothing there in terms of run fits or seams to run through. Let's move over to the defense. I've kind of belabored the offensive stuff. I'm surprised, to be honest with you, about the Shamar Bridges thing. Suddenly he's injured. I'm not sure what that's about. I'm not saying that Shamar Bridges did anything wrong. It's just interesting to me that we haven't. I don't think we have heard of. Actually, wait a minute. He did miss. He did miss Monday's practice. Correct me if I'm wrong. And did he miss a practice or two last week? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. I may have overstepped my bounds there, and I may be wrong. All right, so I'm going to focus in on this interior D tackle slot first. I know that a lot of you are fired up about the outside linebacker position, and I mean I am too. I think we definitely going to do something there. We're definitely going to either bring back Steven Means. Dalen Hayes apparently is injured again, and I know that people are they're saying he's often injured. I mean, come on, guys. I think he's 23 years old, and he's played well in the preseason in a lot of situations. So he showed some ability. Has he made a ton of plays? No, he hasn't. Owe played some in the preseason either. I don't think he got a sack, did he? So if your standard is like guy needs to have 2 or 3 sacks in the preseason, that's very rare. We only got so many Travis Joneses, for real. All right, interior D-line. I was surprised we didn't keep Isaiah Mack. Really. Crawford apparently got cut as well. It looks like to me they're going to bring Urban back. I would think Urban. I mean, they brought him here. He's a guy who's been in this organization, then went to Dallas. I think it seems like one of those handshake agreements they talk about. I'm not sure Isaiah Mack is a practice. Isaiah Mack is not a practice squad guy. He's not. Crawford, I haven't seen the same amount of film of. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but I believe in Isaiah Mack. Saw him play well against Cincinnati's O-line last year on the road. I think 2 sacks in that game. Or maybe he had 2 sacks, but one of them didn't count. Played super well in the preseason. I thought. I don't think he comes back to Baltimore. I think he's on somebody's roster soon. I think Urban comes back into this slot. I'm not sure what Crawford's designation is, but we're not as deep there. Just looking at this because Travis Jones is injured and it says questionable right there next to him. So I'm not concerned about the spot for real. If we bring back Urban. And or Crawford at some point. All right, so some of us Ravens fans are worried about the outside linebacker spot, and I get that. Ojabo is definitely going to, IR or whatever you call it, PUP for a while, right? 6 weeks, at least. I think they're obviously going to play Harrison some, an inside linebacker, and play him an outside linebacker some. He's going to get an opportunity to perform. Does he deserve that opportunity more than other guys? I'm not sure. He's certainly there are talent upgrades, available for us. JPP, would appear to be a talent upgrade. I know Jesse Luketa from Penn State, I think got cut by Arizona. Looks, a more experienced outside linebacker guy, but I think he played a little bit inside backer too for Penn State. I may be wrong on that. So let's look at the outside linebacker group in combination with the inside linebacker group in terms of numbers. We got to take Bowser out of there, right? Because Bowser's not eligible to come back till after week 4, I think. And Ojabo, the same. So you got Bynes, Queen, that's 2. Welch, Harrison, that's 4. Ross is 5. And then you've got Owe and Houston. Right, so only 2 that I'm seeing on here. Maybe there's someone that I'm forgetting, but I don't think so. Hayes we released. Hayes we cut, right? Means we released. Quite sure Means is coming back. I'm going to go ahead and add Means to that group and say it's 3. So 3 outside linebackers, 5 inside linebackers. That makes 8. I mean, you can do it with that. I still think at outside linebacker you're a little light in terms of numbers and experienced guys. Steven Means is experienced, and Steven Means is strong. I think he's good against the run. I think he's very good against the run. I think he's good in spurts against the pass, but certainly not a huge pass rush guy. Justin Houston, we haven't seen him at all in the preseason. Don't think we need to. Justin Houston can roll out there in week 1 against the Jets, and he can he can get pressure on the quarterback. He can have 1 or 2 sacks. No reason why Justin Houston can't still have an impact. If you look at some of the film from last year, I did a film study on him. During the season, and then I did one in the offseason as well. He easily could have had, I believe he finished with 5 sacks. I might be wrong there. And easily could have had 8 sacks, even as many as 9 or 10. There was 3 situations where he beat the tackle and was held immediately. One of them didn't get called, actually. But, where he was probably within 2.5 yards of a quarterback, not delivering the football and was clearly held, hooked. I think one of them was against Green Bay. And I believe that was called. And I think one of them was against the Bengals at home in that Week 7 game. So, to me, Houston has the ability to go, 6 sacks, 8 sacks, maybe 9 or 10 if things go really, really well, but I wouldn't look for double digits from him at this point. Oweh, we know who we've got. Is Harrison going to get a lot of sacks on the edge? No. Is Means going to get a lot of sacks on the edge? No. He's not. So, personnel-wise, where the Ravens are going to add a player, probably outside linebacker. Definitely going to bring one back. These two guys, in my opinion, look, first of all, Christian Welch, in my opinion, outplayed Malik Harrison over the course of the preseason. Josh Ross outplayed Welch over the course of the entire preseason, but not in that third game. Watching the film of that, Welch played quite well, played equal to Ross, and in some cases actually better. I kind of think the front office needed to make a decision here. If it was next year with those same three guys, I think they get and there's no progress. Malik Harrison gives us another season like last year. Well, God forbid something happens to him health-wise, like being shot again. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But if he gives us, the same season production-wise, then they're going to get rid of Harrison next year. If the same battle, the same preseason training camp battle occurred between those three guys, I think the only reason that Harrison didn't get cut is because he's been practicing an outside linebacker and at least in-game provides the ability or option for him to go out there and give us some snaps at outside linebacker. I really don't have much to say about the DBs for real. Hopefully JAD's a guy that's going to be able to play soon. Am I concerned about the roster stuff? Yeah, I am. But I also know that there's at least 2 moves, if not 4, that'll be done in the next, the next 18 hours, maybe 19 hours. And then potentially, I'm not even including the offensive line piece. I think there's got to be it's possible there's something shaken down with the offensive line. Hopefully Ronnie Stanley's able to return to the practice field. I know people are getting nervous about that, and I get it. I understand that. The guy had a really horrible injury, and I think 2 surgeries, right? And it was difficult last year when he came back in week 1, and certainly in hindsight looks like we brought him back or he came back too early. I addressed what I consider to be limiting factors or positional overlap that is kind of slowing down the roster moving forward. I didn't mention Tylan Wallace. Me personally, if you look at the preseason, he was hurt. I know, just like Prochet. I don't think Prochet was going to play a lot in the preseason anyway. I think Tylan Wallace, the plan was for him to do so. I think Mekhi Polk and Shamar Bridges outplayed him by far. I know Bridges' situation is a little bit of a question mark, because apparently from what I read briefly, I'm talking like 10 minutes of researching, he may be an IR type guy for the whole year and not eligible to come back to our practice squad. I don't know anything about the injury, whatever it is. Mekhi Polk, I certainly hope comes back to the practice squad. If we're going to be with this roster here, it certainly looks like we're going to be in 12 personnel a lot, with Likely on the field as that second tight end. I offer to you that our best lineup is probably some combination. Well, hopefully Dobbins is all good to go, right? Our best lineup is going to include those 4 guys, right? Bateman, Dobbins, Andrews, and Likely. And then either a fullback, Ricard, so that'd be 22 personnel, but Likely can play receiver. Or, a Duvernay, Prochet, DeMarcus Robinson. And so that would be considered 12 personnel, but Likely can play receiver. So it can morph into 11. And I wonder about situations like that. So let's just do this for a moment. So that is technically 12 personnel. 1 running back, Dobbins, 2 tight ends, Andrews, and Likely. Now, neither one of those tight ends is known for being a blocker. So what are you going to get from the defense? You're probably going to get nickel personnel. I don't know what the Ravens' plan is. Certainly they have some real in-depth plans, probably beyond anything I can think of right now. But to me, 12 personnel with those 2 guys is still limited. It's still limited, even against nickel, because now we've taken out Ricard and Boyle, 2 guys who are typically used as blockers at the point of attack. So let's do it the other way. Let's say you go Andrews, Boyle is your 12 personnel, and then same thing, 1 running back. And let's say, DeMarcus Robinson. So still 12 personnel. Big 12 personnel, right? But now you do have a lead blocker in Boyle. My original point about limiting factors is that keep all those guys that I have underlined there on the field and take Nick Boyle out and substitute Patrick Ricard. What's the difference? I mean, what is the difference really? And that is what I mean when I say limiting factors. That you have two players where you really only need one roster spot, in my opinion. And I think that's where a lot of the league is moving. Parts of the game of football are moving there as well in high school and college, whereby you have an H-back. You have a tight end / fullback. We have a fullback, Ricard, and then we are going to have 4 tight ends, one of whom likely is a hybrid receiver. So there is a conversation that occurred. Someone was messaging me. I didn't have time to reply back, whereby I was saying, hey, look, I know people think we only kept 5 wide receivers, but look, we kept likely. So basically what they did was they said likely is better than blank. Bridges, Polk. I know Bridges got the injury situation. So likely was a guy that we kept in lieu of keeping another receiver. I understand that. I get it that he generally is a receiver. So is Mark Andrews. I still feel like we don't need 2 of these guys, Ricard and Boyle, who generally do the same job. I intend to do a short video sometime this weekend about how to utilize Patrick Ricard in a way that makes us less predictable. It's been a beast of a video for me to try to do. I like Patrick Ricard, man. I do. I'm sure most of you do too. I like him. His story's amazing. I think he was undrafted out of Maine. Played D-tackle and fullback. How many freaking people can say that? And then has expanded his game in the last couple of years to not only play fullback, but to roll out there and play some tight end too. Even though, personnel-wise, he's considered a fullback pre-snap. Formation-wise is still pre-snap, but it's post-huddle. Post-huddle. And another thing, and this will be the last thing I mention, one of the complaints that a lot of people have had about the offense in recent years is how often we are, down in the play clock before we're getting the ball snapped. A lot of that has to do with subbing on and off a tight end like a Boyle or a fullback and Ricard. And my contention is if you just had one guy doing both of those jobs, then you're not subbing as much and you can get the play off quicker and your quarterback has more of an opportunity to audible because he has maybe an extra 6 or 8 seconds at the line in order to do so. Certainly Boyle's injury is a mitigating factor. In any case, I rambled on a little bit here at the end. You guys let me know what you think of my thoughts about this roster. I'm not panicking. I'm concerned. I am. I would like to see us not be 27-23, especially with it, pretty much being a foregone conclusion that we're going to pick up another running back. I would like to see us be 26-24. And all of us would like to see Ronnie Stanley, out on the practice field. That will make all of us feel a whole lot better about what's happening with the team and what's happening with the roster and our ability to protect, what is the greatest offensive asset, in Ravens history, which is Lamar Jackson. Let me know what you think of my video here in the comments section.